And so, let me read a little bit about Dale Allen Hoffman, for those of you that don't know much about him. Dale Allen Hoffman is an ancient wisdom keeper. This is a very cool write-up here. So this is what he is. He's an Aramaic wisdom keeper and energetic healer, sharing long-suppressed ancient secrets. I'm interested already. And healing modalities. Dale is the only soul on earth sharing a living, breathing vision of the original Aramaic Yeshua, Jesus, and Mariam Magdalitha. It's Mary Magdalene. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? The alchemy, the wisdom from the Bible, Gnostic and mystery school philosophers as one pure revelation. He has published numerous audio, which I believe you can buy in the back, audio and video programs, is the author of the book, Echoes of an Ancient Dream, Aramaic Toning on the Path of Life. And he's joined by his wife, Dale is joined by his wife, Loretta, of 20 years. Woo! Wow, what is that?
October 24th.
Wow, just 20 years. Can you believe this? Oh my God. I must have married her at 10. Okay, so
That
it's
makes me sound really good.
my great pleasure is Dale and Loretta are friends of Joyful Gathering, and they visit us when they come to New Jersey, and so we're very honored and blessed, and we always welcome them with such love. So I'd like to welcome Dale Allen Hoffman.
That was awesome. Yeah, that married a 10-year-old might have been. I think it was good until. We're gonna have some fun today. So I haven't actually been here at Christmas time in a couple of years.
Last year.
Not last year.
You got snowed out.
Yeah, that's what happens. Snow. Does it snow here?
Yeah, you've covered.
I think I remember that. Yeah, oh, the car got stuck. That's what happened. Anyway, I remember now. But we were here back in July. We had only had this device for like 2 days at the time we got here, although we've been working with it for quite a few years. We got some really cool stuff in store. I'm going to use this a little bit in the service, but this will mostly be for this afternoon. It's called Paradigm. It's a pure analog tone generator that generates not only, it's like having, let's take a little bit of a breath. Click that up there. I'm going to come down there. Take a deep breath. I'm going to bring this sound in. This green color here represents the heart chakra. This tone is the center frequency of what Eastern science and philosophy recognizes as the heart chakra, which is this electromagnetic area right here. I'm going to bring another tone in here. Big breath. That's called resonance. Hear that? Shaking, vibrating. Ooh, can you make that? Just if you can hit this pitch that I'm hitting. I'll spend more time with this afternoon in the workshop, which is 12:30. It starts at 12:30. This pyramid here is an exact dimensional replica of the Great Pyramid at Giza. What are we generally told the pyramids are? They're what? What's the word that we generally hear? That the pyramids were tombs. You know why they're thought of as tombs is because that's all that was left after everything else was stolen. The copper that was scraped off the walls, the different electromagnetic devices that were inside and stolen. All of the pyramid's capstones were stolen, every single one. Interesting little side thing. There was a recent study that happened that came out right after I was here last time, midsummer. A team of international scientists who went in and did electromagnetic studies of primarily the Great Pyramid at Giza, and found out that they could measure electromagnetic waves down into the earth and for about 18 miles in an arc, basically a sphere around it, up into the air, etc. And at different times of the day, the waterways which were beneath the Giza plateau, all these pyramids, the sun would have, there was openings in the waterways, and the sun would actually activate the water and flow between this network of pyramids and sphinx, and it would send out what's called coherent frequencies into the community. In the morning, those frequencies would, give you an example. Take this one out. You feel that?
Yeah.
That's a relationship of two notes right there together. That's one sound. That's another sound that's really close, but it's off just enough that it creates that. In early morning, the pyramids would actually create waves that are a bit more like this, energizing. Midday, they would start getting right around here to help them maintain focus, and by evening, just because of the natural arc of the way the sun and the celestial things were happening, the waterways, it would have more of a pure stillness to it. That being said, they still don't have a clue the full magnitude of what those pyramids were really about, because so much of it had been stolen. All that was left was some jewels and some tombs. What we're going to do right now, though, is we're going to do a little experiment. We're going to make a sound. We're going to tone. Of course, I always tone when I'm here. Toning. Toning is actually when we just did Om. There's Om, O-M, and then there's Om, which actually uses the entire architecture of the mouth. Om. But the sound we're going to make is what the word in Aramaic that ultimately turned into what we know of now as Lord. Anybody here come from a Christian background?
Yeah.
Does anybody know where the word Lord comes from?
Feudal 12th century.
Feudalism, 9th century, close,
Ninth.
good guess. It's a term that has nothing to do with Christianity or Jesus in any way, shape, or form. The original Old English word was Hloffward, and what it meant was loaf-ward. He was the guy at the top of the pyramid that owned all the land, etc. He was the ruler. He would set out the parameters the society must live within. The reason he had all that power is because he had the money, he had the land, he had the resources. And everything that was done by the worker dogs, the humans, would filter back up to him. That word became, unfortunately, impregnated into the Christian teachings. And so as an example, now, for me, I never use the word Lord unless I'm referencing the fact that I don't use the word Lord, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So like the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. What I'm going to do is one time, with this pitch, I'm actually going to tone what the word Lord was in Jesus' language. And you've all heard this word before, in Aramaic. Or you almost said Aromatic, but you said Aramaic. Aromatic just means I smell good. Aramaic is the language. People say aromatic all the time, and I'm like, that's good. Jesus was a smelly critter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tone that sound once, and then we're going to do it 3 times together, okay? So this is what the sound Lord sounded like in ancient Aramaic, okay? Maria. Have you ever heard that before? So let's make that sound. We're going to tone it 3 times. This is not a performance. It doesn't matter if you're in pitch. This is about expression. It's not about living up to some kind of standard of what you think your voice is supposed to sound like. You don't have to turn blue and like fall over because you're trying to last as long as everybody else around you. Everywhere I go, there's always someone, if I look out, that's going. And I know there's not a sound coming out of their mouth. That's okay if that's what you want to do. That's not toning. That's air toning. Karaoke toning. Well, it wouldn't be karaoke toning. Karaoke toning. That's okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to make that sound. We're going to do that wide open, come back to silence, and then we're going to do it two more times. So a total of 3 times, okay? Get a beautiful breath in through your nose. Big breath again. One more time. So let's do an experiment. Let's try toning the word Lord once. Okay? Lord. Let's see what Lord feels like. Big breath. See some sour lemon faces. Let's do Maria again to wipe that one clean, okay? One more time. Do you think it matters in any way, shape, or form that it may have some kind of importance, the words or the expressions, the vibrations we're using when we're referencing what one would call an avatar like Yeshua/Jesus? Jesus comes from the Greek Jesus, which means little Zeus or Hail Zeus. Interesting. Most people don't know that. I represent the California surfer Jesus, which came in the 6th century. We've got 2 of us in the room. That came in a little bit later. As a matter of fact, what he probably would have looked like was a little blend of Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, with maybe a little Desmond Tutu. But of course, we have that sort of Greco-Roman Jesus guy. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit here with some Christmas ideas, since we're sort of kicking the season off. And next week is it the Breath of Life? Is that what you're doing next week? The Breath of Life? Is that your talk?
Yes, I am.
So interesting here, a little side note. I just happened to see that in the program. That word in Aramaic, the word known as soul, that we know of as soul, it was psyche in Koine Greek. That word that Yeshua used sounded like this, nafsha, and what nafsha literally means is breath of life. That's what the word soul actually is. What is breath? Interesting thing. Everything I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Christmas story, about some of the ideas, in very minute, small form, because we've only got a few minutes here. Talk about some of the ideas that we've adopted that we don't realize, number one, where they came from, or number two, we just think that they were there in the beginning. In the beginning. We think that they were there 2,000 years ago, as an example, that people thought about Jesus in a particular way, whatever. Maria is an interesting word. That Mar sound actually in Aramaic is a root sound that means bedrock of strength. It ultimately made its way from Aramaic into Greek and became the word for Mars, one of the gods, and of course Mars, the red rock in the sky. And Rhea is a sound in Aramaic. Rhea, Re, Rhea, Ora are all Aramaic sounds, or Ura, that mean an expanding light. Interesting. So what Maria or Maria meant, that word for Lord, actually meant technically a feminine light. That would be a masculine light, especially fluorescence. A direct light. The light of God, the light of the sun. I'm not saying God is a fluorescent light, but a fluorescent light is God. Okay, I don't want to go too deep on lights here. What I'm saying is the reflection would be considered feminine.
Right.
So Maria is about a reflective light. Interesting. Moonlight versus sunlight. Moonlight's unique as opposed to sunlight because moonlight is reflecting sunlight. Okay? So what Maria actually meant was a feminine light expanding from a bedrock of strength. Interesting. Sort of like holding a baby the first few hours of its life. And although tiny, tiny, tiny little seedling, little football wrapped up, there's that light that fills the room, and yet there's that groundedness that you feel. That is actually what Maria meant. It had nothing to do with the feudalist lord. And with other words, with Maria, that makes me think of, of course, it's all about a Virgin Mary. That word virgin in Aramaic is Beitola, and what Beitola or Beitolta in Aramaic means, actually it means pure. Has nothing to do with physicality, has or has not done something in particular. What that actually meant that you're open to receive the seed of what? The seed of eternity. It was brilliant what Denny was reading from Maslow, talking about self-actualization. I'm going to be over here, but because self-actualization is something that Maslow talked about that comes from a pure heart. It's Yuletide, right? It's all about the Yule log. Anybody know what Yule means? Mm-hmm. It actually means spinning wheel. Interesting little thing. It actually means revolution or frequency, sort of like the tides. Where was Jesus born? He was born, let me put it this way, where was Jesus from? He was from what town? Nazareth. We'll come back to that. Nazareth was within a particular region. What was the region Nazareth was within? Is within?
Jerusalem?
No. Galilee. Anybody know what Galilee means in Aramaic? It means spinning wheel. Interesting. Of course, he was born where? Bethlehem. Anybody know what Bethlehem means?
Spinning wheel.
No. I set that one up, and then I couldn't go that way. It means house of bread, of course. Bethlehem, Beit, house of bread. Why was he born in Bethlehem? Taxes, right? There was no census that year. There were no taxes that particular year, historically. Interesting little piece of information. His name is Jesus of Nazareth. Does anybody know what the name is after a Semitic person's name at that time? It's where they're born. Funny too, because it also says in the Bible he wasn't there at all. He went somewhere else. Where? That his parents they fled somewhere. Egypt. That he wasn't even in the region. Oops. So, does anybody know what Nazareth means? Let me just tell you, because you don't know these things probably. Nazareth in Aramaic, Nazareth, means initiate. Okay? Now, he had to be born in Jerusalem. Let's go backward and look at a couple of things. Well, the birth, I think, is actually pretty good. He was born in a what? Manger. Okay. I think he was laid in a manger.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Born in a stable. Now, first of all, what was his trade? What were we told he was? Carpenter. Is there anybody here that's ever been to the Near or Middle East? Or even seen pictures? Mm-hmm. There's something that's not there. Wood. There was no such thing as a carpenter, including at that time. He would work on a mantelpiece one day a year, and then he would sit around the rest of the year twiddling his thumbs if he was a carpenter. That word in Aramaic was Negara. In Greek, the word was tekton. What it actually means is craftsman. And there's something more Gnostic to that I'm not going to get into. What that really meant was essentially like the architect of the universe, and I don't want to go really wide right now. But interesting. So they didn't really have wood. The wood that they did have would come from Lebanon and some other areas. And okay, let's go back though. Now that we've referenced that, he was born in a what? Stable. What did they not have?
Wood.
Wood. You know what else they didn't have? Stables. They didn't have stables. There was no such thing as a stable. Does anybody know where the stable idea comes from? That isn't around me all the time. It comes from the year 1223. A guy you've probably heard of, St. Francis of Assisi. He was at the Greccio Hermitage. He was actually teaching the children, and he put a nativity scene for the first time ever called a presepe or presepio. He put it in a local Italian context with a wooden stable and animals. Nice. And that was actually the first time. 1223 is when this happened, over 1,200 years after the lifetime of Jesus. And to this day, we reference him being born in a stable. He was born in a stable, laid in a manger, because there was no room in the inn. No. In Aramaic and Greek, what that meant, that word inn actually meant, was the main room of a dwelling. People didn't live in wooden houses. They lived in what would be similar to adobe, or things that are carved out, things called caves, such as Jesus praying in the what of Gethsemane?
Garden.
No.
Gethsemane means olive press. The olive presses were in caves. You go to Jerusalem, you go to Israel today, they've got great tourist traps that they love to show you for a fee, all of which are made up. And they laugh at you because they know that you don't know the actual history of the Christian teachings. And they'll take you to a garden called Gethsemane, knowing that it actually would have been in a cave. Interesting little thing there. There's more to a lot of this, though. Making me think about a couple other things here. So, Christianity, actually Christianity was made legal in, what would it be, about the year 315. Council of Nicaea happened 325. Christmas was established as an official holiday in 350 by Pope Julius. What day did they pick? December 25th, right? Because that's when Jesus was born, right? Jesus was born on December 25th, yes?
It's convenient.
The shepherds were tending their flocks in the dead of winter. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Anybody know where that comes from, the 25th? Saturnalia is the fest they chose, and there's more threads to it that I'll put in there. Saturnalia was the festival that actually focused on the several days after the solstice. They also took a lot of these stories that actually were Egyptian. Anybody ever heard of a guy named Horace? I've got the Eye of Ra here. Ever heard of Horace?
Yeah.
Horace was the dude that was born in Egypt about 4,000 or 5,000 BC, born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis, Mari or Maria. 3 kings followed a star in the east to locate his birth. Teaching in the temple at the age of 12, had 12 followers or disciples. Was baptized by his cousin Anup at the age of 30, which began his public ministry. And then Anup was beheaded. And then Horace was known to walk on water, turn water into wine, do all these great miracles. He was known as the Lamb, the Good Shepherd. Sound familiar? Also, just by chance, he was betrayed by Typhon, who then went and hung himself. This is ancient Egypt, by the way. Actually, I've got another guy I can share with you here. Anyone ever heard of Mithra?
Yes. Yeah.
Mithra. I really don't even need to look in the book because it's almost exactly the same. Mithra, born on December 25th, considered a great traveling teacher and master, had 12 disciples or companions, performed miracles, was buried in a tomb, arose on the 3rd day. His resurrection was celebrated every year. He was called the Good Shepherd. He was considered the way, the truth, the light, the Redeemer, the Savior, the Messiah. He was identified with both a lion and a lamb. His sacred day was Sunday, the Lord's Day, hundreds of years before the appearance of Christ. Mithra had his principal festival on what was later known as Easter Ishtar, the East Star, the day of the East Star, at which time he was resurrected. His religion had a Eucharist, or Lord's Supper. This is all just coincidence, I'm sure. Funny little thing.
Good day to be born.
Yeah, it's a good day to be born. So let me tell you something here. First of all, in a few days is December 21st. What's December 21st? Anybody know what that is? Winter solstice. Solstice is very interesting. Now, first of all, when we got to my friend Mike's house the other night, there's Orion's belt in the sky. It was interesting to see, because over the net, you're not going to really see it from here where we are. Right now, you would see this from the Caribbean. In the time of Jesus, about 2,000 years ago, what I'm going to describe to you was seen from Israel, northeastern Africa, the Mediterranean, and southern Europe, and the Arabian Peninsula. Okay? Interestingly, the star in the east, that star that has been in all the mythology for thousands of years, the star in the east is actually Sirius. Sirius was known as the dog star. The Native Americans called it dog star. Does anybody know why it was called the dog star?
It's the brightest?
It's the brightest. They talk about the tail of a dog, etc. But actually, you ever heard of the dog days of summer?
Yeah.
Does anybody know what that means? It's something to do with commerce and everything, right? The dog days of summer, they believed, Native Americans actually believed, that people would get nuts during the days that Sirius was brightest in the star. So bright that you could see it even when the sun was out. And they thought it made men frisky. We'll just use the word frisky. Interesting thing there. Also because in the Arabian area, that was actually considered to be basically it was equivalent to our sun, but out there like in another far off galaxy. So it had like great prizes. It was prized for its brightness and its power, but a lot of people don't realize that on December 21st every year, the three kings of Orion's belt line directly up with Sirius. They follow Sirius, the star in the east, to locate. What happens is the sun drops into the middle on the 21st of something called the Southern Crux. It's a constellation of stars that's a cross that looks sort of like this. And the sun drops right down into the center of it on the 21st every year. It sits there dead on that cross for 3 days. Late on December 24th, early on the morning of the 25th, the sun rises about 1 degree off of that cross. The three kings follow the star in the east to locate the newborn son, which is born on the morning of December 25th. Everything I'm talking about here is about relationship. Everything I'm talking about is about frequency, about vibrations, about tides. It's about something very galactic, something very cosmic. But what we've done is we have, in the words of Joseph Campbell, he said we continually mistake mythological archetypes or symbols as being references to historical facts. And we eat the menu, we never get to the meal. We look at the story, not understanding what's behind it. So, I'm going to reveal a few things to you. In the next couple of years, this is going to sound very revelation, in the next few years, a lot of stuff's going to be coming out, whether people believe this or not. Have you noticed the UFO stuff coming from NASA in the last 3 weeks? Look it up. What NASA has been saying about UFO sightings just in the last month or two. They have to pepper this stuff out, because if they really dump it all out at once, we're all going to go nuts, right? I don't think so. But you know, there was all that talk in the ancient texts about a time when things would get a little bit intense. And you'd get a little bit strong. I remember being at a church in Texas about 8 years ago, a place called Wimberley, Reverend Ellen Debenport, and she was like, what do you think it'll be like, Dale, when everything's sort of, do you think it's going to come to a head? And that was before 2012. And December 21st, 2012 came, and then it went. And they were all going, okay, well, that was nice. Not quite as dramatic. It was sold to us. But here's the thing. Has anybody noticed anything over the last couple of years? People are on edge. Things are a little... You're having thoughts that you feel aren't yours. You're having bizarre dreams. It seems like people are at each other's throats. I know we're in New Jersey. You know, I was born and raised here, sort of. But I mean, have you noticed it at all? And I'm not saying anything about politics or orange-headed monsters and big white houses, because it's not outside of you. It's not out there. Have you ever just like walked into a room and all of a sudden you feel not right? And you know, we're told to obsess about something, our thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your life. But let me just put a little hypothesis out there. Maybe you've never had an accurate thought in your entire life. Maybe every single thought you've ever had has never been anything but a delusion. Have you ever, thought about that? That maybe all your thoughts are is interpreting a movie that's projecting on a screen that's not even there? And changing your thoughts isn't going to change your life, because you aren't what's reflecting. You aren't this. You are that which sees. You are eternal, meaning you're what's watching it all. And I'll give you a great quote from Yogananda. He said to transfer the sense of identity from the pseudo-soul or ego or from the story to become the ever-joyous witness of a stupendous cosmic drama. And to realize that what's happening right now, it's not as big of a deal as people are making it. Like the whole world is falling apart. The world's not falling apart. All that's happening is not nearly that big of a deal. It's just the manifest, apparently physical universe is, see, it's all about frequency and vibration. The manifest physical universe is just tearing away from the fabric of eternity. That's all. That's all that's happening right now. But what's tearing away is not what's real. What's real is, in the words of St. Francis of Assisi, what you are looking for is what is looking. To realize that the Christ isn't out there. The Christ, that which you seek, the presence, the peace, the prosperity, this great awakening that you think you're going to find in a particular location at a particular time in space, that's you. It's your inherent divinity. That's who you are. Ernest Holmes, you're going to get that here, because if anybody understood it, Ernie got it. Ernest Holmes. I just call him Ernie, just in short. But Ernest Holmes got that. I'll say this. Pretty much everything that I just told you, if you went to a biblical expert, a linguistic scholar, or someone who is known to be an absolute world authority in biblical religion or languages, has no idea about any of it. Because they were fed a particular menu. I don't mean that, I'm saying this with a loving heart. They were fed a particular menu, and the better they parrot that menu back out, the more they're considered an expert. And if you go off menu, forget it, you're not an expert. You're just a nutcase. So, we have all these images, and you can think about it even. What interesting way to prepare people for, like, as an example, a damning God that sees you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, knows if you've been bad or good, so you better be good, or you're going to burn in hell for eternity. You get what I'm saying? God has a long white beard, right? And he sits on a throne. And he's got black shoes and a red suit, and he wears a hat with a little thing on top, and he's in the mall right now. He's at the Deptford Mall, he's at the Echelon Mall. That's God. What an interesting way to prep children. Isn't that intriguing and unique? But what I'm saying is, again, it's not about the story. It's not about a baby born in a cave somewhere on the other side of the world. And I have to add this too, because I didn't quite complete the statement that where I said there's no room in the inn, that word was the main dwelling or the main room of a home. That was called the upper room, kataluma. The upper room was where the family would live. There was also a lower room. You know what was kept in the lower room of these cave dwellings? Animals. Why? Anybody know why they would put animals down there? Body heat. Couldn't climb steps. That was actually pretty good. Body heat. So body heat from stinky animals would actually heat the rest of the house. So what that actually said in Greek and Aramaic was that he was actually put down with the animals. But in the end, they also said he wasn't even in the country, he was in Egypt. And then they give us a name that says he was born in Nazareth, but nobody even knows. So what I'm saying again is it's not about something outside of you. A great quote from a guy named Paul Solomon, who was a student of Edgar Casey. Paul had a place, it's still there, but he's gone, called Fellowship in the Inner Light in Virginia Beach. And he said to experience life rather than interpret it.
Right.
What's not going to help you these next few years as everything keeps unwinding? Your thoughts are not going to help you. You know what's going to help you? Let me bring this back up just in this last minute or so. So, who'd want to live like that every day? Guess what? You are. And it doesn't matter what you think about that. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are about it. What matters is, how do you feel? And it doesn't matter what you label your feeling to be, happy, sad, on edge. What matters more than anything right now in these next few years is that you allow yourself to be, you chose to be here at this exact moment in time, to be we are the grounding rods for humanity. We were sent here to navigate the cosmic shift. We're not here to fix things, we're here to allow what needs to be expressed to express. Has the feminine been speaking the last couple of years?
Oh, yeah.
After how long of being shut down?